Hello and welcome to our brand new podcast, Enter the Abyss. My name is Britton.
And my name is Cleed.
And this is our first podcast that we have ever done.
So I think we should explain to the audience exactly what our podcast is going to be about.
I think that's a great idea. If you clicked on us and you're wondering what you're about to listen to, well, we're going to tell you. So essentially our podcast is really about anything spooky, horrific.
We're really just going to experiment a lot on this. And if you guys like a certain genre or subject, just request it and we'll keep doing research on it.
Speaking of which, you guys need to be able to get a hold of us if you want to request things. So we do have an email address. It's entertheabysspod@gmail.com. We also have a Facebook page at Enter the Abyss Pod and Instagram, Enter the Abyss Pod.
And as always, if you like the channel, please subscribe and follow.
And if you got some friends that might be interested in it, share it out there. We'd like to hear about that.
So before we start, we do have a couple shot glasses ready. So we're going to go ahead and cheers to our first freaking podcast.
Yep, and I'm going to do this one up as well. So we've got a toast to get ready to start. As of recording this, the New Year's been here for a couple days now. So we got a new year, not only a new year, but a whole new decade, 2020. This is to a new year, a new decade, a new podcast, and some new listeners and supporters. So if you have a drink, pick it up now. I don't care if it's a water bottle. Take a shot with us. 3, 2, 1.
Cheers. Roaring 20s.
Oh, wow.
And now, without further ado, prepare to enter the abyss. So let's talk about the topics that we'll be going over tonight. So I will be going over something called the Foo Fighters.
The Foo Fighters, the band, right?
Yeah, I got a confession to make.
Let's hear it.
I'm no fool.
You're I'm no fool.
But seriously, this is going to be covering some weird objects that were seen by pilots in World War II. It's actually a really interesting case study.
Okay, so it's not the band. It's a phenomenon that took place during World War II.
Yes, so don't exit your screen, guys. This is going to be a good story.
I mean, if you hate the Foo Fighters, I guess, but this isn't the band. So, and I'm actually going to be talking about the disappearance of 130 children in the town of Hamlin.
Oh, 130 children just disappeared willy-nilly?
Just willy-nilly. I mean, something happened, and there's a lot of theories we'll be talking about. One of them, I think, that I've wanted to cover for a while. But yeah, 130 children just went up and missing.
Wow. Well, guys, let's jump into this. I'm talking about the Foo Fighters tonight. So again, just to explain, these are an unexplained aerial phenomenon experienced in the skies by the Allied pilots and the German pilots during World War II. Specifically, the pilots were flying around Western Europe at night, and they would see fast-moving, perfectly spherical glowing objects following their aircraft. No matter how close they looked, they couldn't see any type of plane infrastructure to these spheres. It was just a bright light. They were described as fiery, glowing red, white, or orange. Not American colors, Britain.
Okay.
America. No matter what the pilots did maneuver-wise, they couldn't lose these orbs. It was like they didn't follow any type of law of physics. Some pilots described them as resembling Christmas tree lights, and reporting that they seemed to toy with the aircraft, making wild turns before simply vanishing in thin air.
Does it say how many reports they had of this?
I mean, I don't know the specific amount, but it was reported throughout the whole Air Force, and not just by one pilot. I mean, this was experienced by almost every pilot in the skies at that time.
Okay, because, to me, first off, I'm kind of questioning some mental health here.
We'll get into that later. But just for the audience, there has been speculation about mental health and the toll that happened with the pilots while they were flying in the skies around Germany. The pilots and aircrew said that the objects flew in formation with their aircraft and behaved as if they were under intelligent control, but never displayed hostile behavior. They even wanted to shoot them down at times, but were never successful. The phenomenon became so widespread amongst the military that the lights earned the name in the European theater of operation as Krat fireballs.
Interesting.
Yeah. Eventually, the airmen named the lights themselves the Foo Fighters, which was inspired by a comic strip from Smokey Stover, in which Smokey, a firefighter, would often declare, "Where there's a foo, there's a fire."
Okay. When there's a foo, there's a fire.
Yeah, reminds me of Samuel L. Jackson. I could see him saying that. Anyways, So the military brass was taking this very seriously because they had no idea what was going on. They initially suspected that this could be some type of new German wonder weapon or possibly a weapon from the Japanese. But when digging into this, they found that German and Japanese pilots were experiencing these same aerial phenomenons.
I was just going to ask you, because it's on both sides that are experiencing this. It's kind of hard to point fingers if everyone in the sky is seeing these.
Well, the weird thing is, once the war ended, the sightings stopped, which is very strange. So it's like they were almost observing that event, or something during that time was causing those spheres to be there.
Was there like a celebration in Germany? They're doing fireworks or something, like hurrah?
You could speculate it's fireworks, but I mean, it's an orb following a plane, so fireworks
fireworks doing that.
Yeah, there's no way a firework could do that. But let's jump into some documented reports that we got from American pilots during World War II.
Let's.
Yeah. So we got Lieutenant Fred Ringwald. He was the first one to release a report. And I got to say, I mean, for you to actually put this in a report, I mean, you got to have a serious set of like cojones to do that, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, there was a sphere following me while I was in my plane. And they're like, yeah, go in this padded room, buddy.
Yeah, your lieutenant's looking at you like, what did you smoke before you got into this plane? Okay.
The story went like this. I was riding an observer in the night fighter piloted by Lieutenant Eld Schluter with Lieutenant Donald J. Myers on the radar. It was late November evening in 1944. Partly cloudy with a quarter moon. We were roaming the Rhine Valley just north of Strasbourg on the French-German border when Ringwald said, I wonder what those lights are over there in the hills. There were 8 to 10 of them in a row, glowing fiery orange. Then Schluter saw them off his right wing. They checked with the Allied ground radar, but they registered nothing. Thinking that the lights might have some kind of German air weapon, Schluter turned the plane to fight, only to have the lights vanish. At first, the men said nothing, fearing they would be ostracized, but then the sightings spread through the unit, and he did the official report.
Okay. Well, so, I mean, this report came from someone who's riding with a jet pilot, and he's kind of...
Right.
They found this? Okay.
So there was 3 people in that plane. He wasn't the driver from what I got out of the story, but he was an observer of the actual spheres themselves.
And they saw the spheres in a line, I guess 8 to 10 of them in a straight line, and then they saw them off the side of the wing. So I'm just going to say, if I'm a fighter jet and I see this, yeah, I'm getting ready for combat, especially you don't know what the hell it is you're looking at.
I would be terrified because, I mean, you're flying over enemy territory and you see that, man. I mean, your fight and flight senses are going off. I mean, I could totally see why they would turn and try to shoot these down.
Yeah, and I wonder how many shells were shot. Just like, holy shit!
And to see it just disappear, I mean, I wouldn't know what to think.
Well, and you said that they were kind of hesitant to file a report. I mean, what does your commanding officer say? You land, and they're like, oh, I saw these orange balls following my plane. They're like, yeah, huh?
Well, I wonder if there could even be negative repercussions, too. I always hear that in the military.
Would be.
Now, let's look at another report. On December 22nd, a pilot with the 415 Night Fighter Squadron reported 2 large orange glows, which climbed rapidly towards his plane as he flew over, I'm going to butcher this, Hagenau, Germany. On the ground, the radar operators also got a reading on the objects, which is really interesting. Upon reaching the plane's altitude, the pilot related the Foo Fighters leveled off and stayed on my tail. I executed steep dive banks and other evasive maneuvers, but the UFOs matched me turn after turn. After staying with the plane for 2 minutes, he testified they peeled off and turned away, flying under perfect control, and then went out. So, I mean, it's almost like these spheres are just able to stay right by the planes, regardless of like what maneuvers they do. I mean, it's almost like they're toying with them.
Yeah, and I was going to say, they're under some kind of control, because it sounds to me like they're pursuing it, kind of messing with it, and then they're like, okay, peace out, I'm leaving, and then they leave. But you're saying they're being picked up on radar, so is the base picking these things up as well?
Yeah, that's from ground radar, which is interesting. I mean, I don't know how radar works necessarily, but what I believe is they shoot some type of wave in the air, and it gets bounced back, and that's how they detect things in the sky.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it has to be some type of solid object for you to get it on radar.
There's something that's bouncing back.
Now,
yes.
I'm not an expert in that field, so if I'm wrong, put it in the comments, but that's what I believe how radar works.
That's an assumption, people.
Quite the assumption. Now, I found another story where an air pilot claimed that they picked up one of those spherical objects on radar, and at first it appeared to be a conventional aircraft on the radar, but upon getting it tracked, it accelerated to such a high speed, they couldn't even clock how fast it was going, and then it just disappeared in the horizon.
So it's definitely not a plane.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's crazy that they couldn't clock the speed on there.
I'm going to make an assumption, and you're probably going to jump into this later. I know what this is. It's aliens.
Oh, is it aliens?
It's
is that what it is?
Right.
There's a lot of theories, and from what you originally said, some people did claim that maybe the pilots were just crazy.
Well, but I mean, think about it. Alien sightings have been what? They've been orbs, right? People mysteriously see orbs in the sky. There's a lot of videos on YouTube and the internet, but these are orbs.
Not all of them, but there are a lot of orb
Most.
sightings. I agree with you. So let's go ahead and just jump into the theories on here.
Let's do it. I'm curious to see these.
So let's jump into the natural explanations. So some scientists said the sightings were flares, kind of like what you were saying, Britton, with the fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I mean, even flares themselves, I mean, they're always descending in the air, right?
Right.
So they're not going to be following the aircraft, so that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Another one is weather balloons. But again, I mean, to me, both of those theories are almost insulting. I mean,
especially the weather balloon. A weather balloon is not going to keep up with a fighter plane.
right. I mean, how quick can a weather balloon go? I mean, those
Not
airplanes
fast.
are going fairly quickly. I mean, I don't know how fast, but at least I would assume 400 plus miles per hour.
Well, and especially when they said that they tracked one that literally took off so fast they couldn't even track it.
Yeah.
A weather balloon is not doing that.
That's some crazy ass weather balloons we got in
Unless
those
the
skies.
Germans have some crazy weather balloons. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
I
wonder
don't want to get
weapon.
into that one.
So one that I found actually that is interesting is St. Elmo's fire. So have you heard of St. Elmo's fire, Britain?
Yes, but don't ask me what the events are because I have no idea.
To any of our viewers, I would challenge you to actually just Google image St. Elmo's fire. But it's a phenomenon where light appears on the tips of objects in stormy weather, and it almost looks like lightning, or like if you could see static electricity, that's what it would look like. But just take a look. It's really interesting. Obviously, though, these air pilots have already seen St. Elmo's fire. I'm sure that they wouldn't mistake these things for flares or weather balloons.
No,
So-
like you said, it's insulting. Like, oh, it's probably a weather balloon.
Right.
No.
So
it's
when their
not.
superiors came out and told them that these were the possible things that were going on, obviously everyone were rejecting these theories. And also when I was going through this research, even some pilots would get mad and talk amongst themselves about how it was all just basically bullshit. So let's jump into some other theories which are also insulting. This is kind of where you were going at, Britain, where you're saying that they were probably just crazy. Shell shock and mental illness is a serious thing that can happen in wars like these. So basically they were saying that these pilots were suffering from combat fatigue, which is a polite way of saying that the stress of war is driving them slowly insane. But there was pretty scant evidence of that, and they had psychologists interview these pilots, and they seemed like normal people. The person who actually interviewed these people described these pilots who were first interested in just combat. After that, their interests were pinup girls and poker. I mean, these guys seem like my kind of guys. So
I mean, I can only imagine like the psychologist that's talking to these guys, right? Like, okay, so you're telling me you're seeing these glowing balls, and look, buddy, you're in war. I know you're probably stressed. You're not sleeping very much. You didn't see anything. You're okay.
tell me about your childhood.
Tell me about your childhood. Did your father hit you?
What was your relationship with your parents?
Did they go through a divorce? Who hurt you?
Now, some people speculate that it was the work of Nazi astrophysicists. These objects were following people above Germany, so it isn't too far-fetched. And again, once the war ended, these sightings completely stopped. Nobody's seen Foo Fighters really ever since, or at least as consistently. Some people actually attributed the Foo Fighters to Werner von Braun, who was using the V-2 rockets, which were missiles that would bomb other places, which were pretty far ahead of their time. But again, the physics behind the V-2 bombers, I mean, they would basically go into a straight line. They're not going to follow plane. Like if you were to do like a barrel roll or dive down, it's not going to follow you around. So again, all these explanations to me kind of fall short.
So I want to know, when is the aliens coming into this? Because that's what this is. It's aliens.
Well, I'm not going to jump into aliens yet. So
Yet.
my next one, and we'll go into the wacky theories right now. Okay, guys, let's go into the wacky theories.
We've already had wacky theories. Balloons is a wacky theory.
So on the deep recesses of the internet, we're going to have two more theories. So there is the time traveler theory. Let's say you're in the year 3000 and they develop time travel and your technology outpaces what they had in World War II so exponentially that you could go back and visit and not have any negative repercussions. Literally, if they shoot you, nothing happens. You can follow them wherever you want. It's like a historian's dream.
Yeah. And World War II would be one of those monumental places and things you'd want to go and see, of course. But, I don't know. That's a little far-fetched.
I mean, to me personally, if I lived that far ahead and I wanted to pick a certain event that took place, I'm a little bit biased, but I might pick World War II.
Yeah, I would pick it. It would be on my top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one theory there. The next one is, all right, we're going to throw this one into it.
Come on, I want to hear it.
It's going to be aliens.
Yes!
So, some people point out at the fact that after the first atomic bomb went off, that there was a lot of UFO spiked activities, especially around nuclear bases and things like that, where these theorists are saying that UFOs had interest in the planes to see what they were capable of and to see if we were going to be dropping any nukes anywhere and things like that. So they just want to keep a close eye on this war and see what was going on.
Yeah, I would imagine, if there's anything that's going to attract aliens to our planet, a world war is probably going to be it.
Right. I mean, I would say so as well. Another bit of evidence they point out is that no one was ever hurt by Foo Fighters. They put that out with the aliens and the time traveler theories. But as of today, there is no explanation to me that fully describes what the Foo Fighters are, what they were, and why they stopped showing up.
Right. So, I mean, I guess for those of you listening, if you want to know more about kind of the Foo Fighters, I mean, I'm going to be honest. If you Google Foo Fighters, you're going to get the band Foo Fighters. But I'm assuming, Clete, if you Google World War II Foo Fighters,
you can look it up.
You'll get that. And I actually looked it up because I was curious as well. And there's some, not a whole lot, but there's a lot of interesting things. Maybe we'll throw a link or two in the description so you can kind of look at them. And on our Instagram page, we'll throw some pictures. But yeah, it's kind of funky.
Absolutely. And before I end this, I just want to say one more thing. The Foo Fighters, the band, they actually legitimately did name themselves after the Foo Fighters.
Okay.
So, interesting.
Alrighty. Well, then let's go ahead and jump on into my topic here. So, as I said at the very beginning, we are going to be covering the story of 130 children that just vanished from a town of Hamelin. Now, Hamelin is located in Lower Saxony, Germany, so also Germany. We didn't plan this to take the same area for our stories. Now, the year was 1284 when the disappearances happened, and the cause of the disappearance is widely debated. We know how many kids went missing, but we don't know why or where they went. And so I have a couple of theories, including my favorite one, the one that's most talked about. But have you heard of this before, Clete?
No, and I don't want to derail you here, but could you imagine if that happened today?
No.
Just some town it happened in one day, right?
Yeah.
Just 130 kids just disappeared.
One day just disappeared.
That'd be on national news, every freaking outlet.
Yeah. No, it'd be all over the place. And it would be like state of emergency, right? I mean, 130 kids just went missing.
People would be breaking into Jeffrey Epstein's house, man.
Yeah. No, so I mean, there's a lot of theories. So essentially what I want to talk about is go through the theories and we'll kind of leave it up to you guys to decide. They still don't know 100% today, so I want to talk about them. Now, the first theory is probably the most popular, and some of you might have heard of this. We're going to talk about the Pied Piper of Hamelin. So the Pied Piper is a multicolored garment-wearing person who plays the pipe. So again, the year's 1284, and Hamelin was actually suffering from a rat infestation. It was horrible. They were all over the place. Now, this is... Some people say it really wasn't a rat infestation because the Black Plague and stuff didn't happen until after, but there was a bunch of rats in this town. The town got together with the mayor and decided, we got to get rid of these rats. This is a problem. And out of nowhere, here comes the Pied Piper into town. He's like, I can help you with this. I can take care of it.
So he's saying he can get rid of the rats for him.
Yep. He just comes in and says, I got it. So they agree to pay him. Some stories tell of about 1,000 coins, some 10,000 coins. It was a significant sum during that time. So they agree to pay him, say, okay, get rid of the rats, we'll pay you. So he goes off through town to get rid of these rats. So what does he do? He starts to play his pipe, and he's dancing through the town playing his pipe, and these rats are starting to come out and follow him through town. It already sounds a little wacky. So they're going through town. He's playing his pipe. The rats are following him. So he leads them out of town. And I should have mentioned beforehand, if I butcher any names in this, I apologize again. This is all in Germany, so don't hold it against me. I don't speak German. I don't know how this is pronounced. So he leads them out of Hamlin, and he leads them to a river, the River Weser, and he drowns all the rats.
Wow, so he actually took care of the problem.
Took care of it, just with music and a river. So the rats all jump in there and they drown, right? So he goes back and he says, okay, cool, job well done. I'm going to go collect my payment.
It's a win-win.
Win-win. So he goes into town and marches up to the mayor and says, you know what, rats are gone, check it out, it's all done. The mayor actually refuses to pay him. He reneges on his promise.
Well, you know what? Maybe he just thought that this guy was crazy and he was being super sarcastic. And he's like, yeah, you'll get rid of the rats? Oh, well, I'll pay you this. And then when he came back and actually did it, he was like, oh, shit, well, we don't have the money.
We don't have that much money. We were kidding. That's actually one of the theories I thought. Now, one of the theories also is that the mayor actually thought that the Pied Piper himself planted the rats in an extortion attempt. Like, hey, I'm going to put these rats here because I know how to get rid of them because my rats will follow me when I play my music, which is bizarre. So the mayor and the townsfolk say, you know what? No, I mean, you got rid of them, sure, but the way you did it, no, there's no way. This isn't real. We're not going to pay you. Get out of our town. So the Pied Piper, of course, is pissed off. He leaves and he says, I'm going to be back to take my revenge. So you can kind of see where this is going.
Yeah, I guess he might have to do with those children disappearing.
We'll have to see. So he leaves town. Town's all great. No more rats. So we're going to fast forward a little bit to St. John and Paul's Day. The adults woke up that morning, got ready for church, and they left to church, leaving all their children home, which to me doesn't sound like responsible parenting. I don't know. I don't think that would happen nowadays.
Well, when I was a kid, dude, I hated church. I didn't ever... Sorry, Mom. I never really wanted to go.
That's a confession. Yeah, I went a couple times with my grandma as a child, but I mean, I was never churchgoer myself. But they left all the children at home. They went off to church, and, they're doing their thing. So the Pied Piper comes back to Hamlin this time, except instead of being multicolored garments, he's wearing a green tunic like a hunter. And he starts going through town, playing his pipe, except now all the rats are gone, so who else is going to follow him? I don't know. Maybe all the town's children? So the town's children start coming out of their homes or dancing around, kind of like they're being hypnotized is what I gathered from it. So he's got this like magical flute that lures children and rats out, which is, I don't know, kind of creepy. I would never want that pipe. So he leads all the children through town. He's playing his music. He's dancing around. And same thing, he takes the children out of town. Now, again, there's 130 of them in total. Some stories state that he had the mayor's grown daughter. I don't know how old this is grown. I'm thinking maybe 10 or older. So now he's got personal ties to the mayor because, he's kind of pissed off at this point. So he leads them out of town and away from Hamlin. Now, this is where the story differs depending on the source material that you get it from. One of the stories states that he took them to the same river that he drowned the rats and drowned all 130 children. I just imagine this river, kind of brutal. It's like overflowing with children and rats.
That's so bad.
It's very bad.
Was there any historical stories of people saying they saw that in the river?
No, not that I could find. And I was actually curious because I'm like, what are the towns that are like at the bottom of that river seeing? Like, oh, whoa. Holy shit. Oh, there's children.
Some guy fishing. There's just a bunch of kids. Oh, my God.
And then he pulls up Timmy from the town of West. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So, again, that's one of the tellings is that he drowned the children. Some of the more popular ones, though, is that he took the children through a trail and then up to a cave in the mountains. And again, once he gets to the cave, it kind of differs. The first one is like, the cave went through and ended up in Transylvania where the kids grew up another life. Just kind of took them from one town to another. Another one was that he just kind of took them to the cave and they disappeared. No one knows where they went. A third one was that he took the children in there and ate them all.
Jesus.
Like a buffet of children.
Ooh, a dark story, Britton.
Yeah, but I mean, it's depending on which one you want to believe. But the kids all disappeared, right? And the Pied Piper takes them away. One story tells that there were 3 children that actually stayed behind. One of them was blind, so he couldn't see where they were going. The second one was deaf, so he couldn't hear the pipe. The third one, quote unquote, was lame. So he was probably crippled and just couldn't keep up. And those 3 are the ones that told the townsfolk what happened. So they stayed back like, oh, the kids are gone. So they weren't part of the 130 children that went missing. Now, there was also another telling of a babysitter who was in town that actually saw the children. She was kind of had a baby in her arms and was walking through and saw the Pied Piper with all the children and told the adults when they got out of church. But regardless of what happened, the adults got out of church. They're walking through town. They notice their kids are gone. Widespread panic, kind of like you were saying it would be today. They send out a bunch of messengers, right, through land, through sea. They're trying to find all their children. It's not as easy as it would be today. You just post on Facebook and Instagram and all the news outlets, right?
Did they try to hunt him down?
Yeah, so that's the thing is they don't know where he came from, right? And no one knows where the children went. However, I can say that the street that they were last seen on, which we'll kind of cover a little bit later, was where the babysitter was. They saw him and she said, hey, he let him out of town, but no one knows where they went. So they sent messengers everywhere and they could not find the children. So here's the crazy thing, right? So the earliest recorded reference to this lost children of Hamelin was actually a stained glass window, which depicts a magical figure in colorful clothing, commissioned sometime around 1300, which is just 15 years after this event took place. And that was on the town's church. It's a stained glass window in this church. Sadly, the window was destroyed in the 17th century, so it's not here today. We can't reference it. But a lot of the historians agree that it did exist at some point, so it was there. Now, if you were to flip through the Town Chronicle of Hamelin, you'll actually find an entry in the year 1384, which is 100 years after this event took place. So in the actual records, it states, and I quote, "It is 100 years since our children left."
That's fucking sad, man.
Yeah, so it literally states, since our children left. So we know the kids are gone, and some people believe that it is the Pied Piper. So there's actually a street in Hamelin, and I'm going to butcher the bejesus out of this name, and I apologize for anyone listening. Bungalonsenstrasse, which is literally translated as the street without drums. Now, it's the last place the children were seen, so even now, music or dancing is not allowed on this street. It's completely illegal to have any dancing or music on this street. When a bridal procession, in fact, I read this, there was a bridal procession going through town. When they crossed this street, the musicians were actually forced to stop playing entirely. It was just super quiet. They crossed the street, music picked back up, and on they went to get married.
That's creepy.
It's intense. Like, to this day, they believe it. Actually, in the town hall, the following lines are actually inscribed on the wall. So, in the year 1284, after the birth of Christ, from Hamelin were led away 130 children born at this place, led away by a piper into a mountain. So Hamelin is, you walk in there, you can see a lot of like artwork from the Pied Piper. They've got a gift shop about the Pied Piper, and it was funny online. I saw something. They actually have a Monopoly game based on the Pied Piper. I kind of want to get my hands on that game.
Fuck Monopoly.
It's one of the best games ever, Cleet, just because you can't win it. Okay, so that's kind of the first rumor is the Pied Piper. So it's a little far-fetched. It's one of the first rumors of the children going missing. There's a couple other ones we'll talk about it. The first one is reference to what they call the dancing plague.
I heard about that, yeah.
Okay. What do you know about the dancing plague?
So something about some peasants started dancing and they danced themselves to death.
Yeah, man, just like that. But in this instance, they actually didn't dance themselves to death. So what happened is, so the dancing plague is essentially a plague in which you kind of go into these hysteric dancing fits. And no, I don't know what it starts from, but a similar plague that actually happened in that time frame drove more than 1,000 children out of the city of Erfurt in Germany in the year 1257. So the children assembled there, and then essentially they conga lined out of the city, dancing and cheering and having fun, all the way to Arnstadt, which is roughly 20.2 kilometers. So they literally danced from one town all the way to the next, just dancing in hysterics.
That's bizarre.
It is bizarre. So the people of Erfurt had no idea where their children went until the town where they ended up, Arnstadt, actually notified them and said, "Hey, we have 1,000 of your children. You want to come pick these little bastards up because we have all your kids." The children were brought back in carriages, but no one ever discovered who led them away.
That's crazy, man.
So that's a dancing plague. They kind of danced their way out of the town. The last thing I want to talk about that could have happened was what's called as the Children's Crusade. In that time, children were actually recruited by the Children's Crusade, which is a huge group of children that would be gathered to defend Christianity and usually weren't heard from again.
Weird.
So the Pied Piper can be referenced as someone who's coming to recruit kids to defend Christianity. It was huge in that time. They're pulled from towns to go and
if you need soldiers, that makes sense.
Yeah, children soldiers. So that is the story of the children of Hamelin. So to this day, no one knows 100% what happened to those children. 130 of them disappeared. No one knows where.
All right, guys. Well, that ends our podcast for tonight. Thank you for joining us. We definitely appreciate you guys supporting our brand new podcast.
Cleet and I have talked about doing this for, 2 or 3 years now, right? So we decided to quit farting around and just sit down and actually do it. So, I mean, we spent a lot of time researching this, and we definitely want to grow and get better. And with that, we definitely need your help. So if there's a certain topic or subject you want us to cover, even if it's like the crazier the better, please shoot us an email. Again, we'll throw everything in the links, but it's entertheabysspod@gmail.com. We want to hear anything, even if it's a story you wrote. We'll do creepypastas, folklore. We really want this to be a podcast where we talk about everything bizarre, creepy, you name it. We want to hear from you guys, and we do apologize if there was any missteps. This is our first one. We will get better, but thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys, and thank you for entering the abyss.
See you next time.